Bible says God approved of slavery, and here's where. The word slavery today drips with images of chains, whips, and racial oppression, and rightly so, because that was evil. But that's not the slavery God approved in the Bible. In ancient Israel, slavery was a lifeline for the broke, the bankrupt, and the desperate. If you couldn't repay a debt, you didn't get thrown in prison or left to die. You worked for someone, got food, shelter, and protection, and after 6 years, you walked free. Some didn't even want to leave because they had it better in a good house than on their own. Exodus 21 spells it out, and God's law demanded fair treatment, rest days, and even gifts when a servant was emancipated. And when Israel broke that law, Jeremiah 34 says God was furious. They freed their slaves to avoid God's judgment. Then they took them back, and God literally handed the whole city over to Babylon in his righteous anger. So yeah, God approved of slavery, not as oppression, but as mercy in a brutal world. It was regulation, not exploitation, protection, not abuse. So the next time you hear someone say God approves of slavery like in America's past, tell them they don't have a problem with the God of the Bible. They have a problem with history and with context. Comment context if you're done letting people twist the Bible into something it's not.
I'm finished with this video. I want you guys to comment lying ass liar if you agree with me 100%, especially if you're a Christian. Because what most Christians who do not read the Bible will just follow along with what this gentleman is saying, this creator is saying, and think that he is correct. In one sense, he is correct. He is correct if he had specified that what he is talking about as far as slavery in the Bible that is condoned is the indentured servitude, the debt slavery of Hebrew to Hebrew. You see, what he is talking about is Leviticus 25 in the earlier verses around 33, where it talks about that if a Hebrew falls into debt, if a Hebrew becomes your servant, you are to treat them a certain way. You are to give them their freedom after the year of Jubilee, which actually could be in the seventh year, or it could be in the 50th year, depending upon which part of the Bible you're referring to, because we know the Bible doesn't speak in univocality. When he's speaking of treating your slaves a certain way and giving them gifts and paying them money and things of that nature, this is all Hebrew to Hebrew slave. So, question, people. When the Anglicans came to the Americas, if an Irishman came, were they indentured servitudes? Yes, they were. When other Englishmen came, were they indentured servitudes? Yes, they were. Were some of the first Africans who came to Jamestown, were they indentured servitude? Yes, they were. But these quickly changed with the different slave laws. Why? Because Pope Nicholas V, who had previously wrote it before Jamestown, said that you are to go into Africa and make them your slaves, teach them Christianity, but make them your slaves for life. Why would Pope Nicholas say it in this format? Because the indentured servitude of Englishmen to Englishmen, or Englishmen to Scottish or Irish or Spanish or Portuguese or Dutch, was tribe of tribe, same of same. This is when race was created. So these were men of the same skin tones. Now, Leviticus 25 verses 44 through 46 describes the Israelites as from the foreign nations. You may get your slaves, and go check this out. From the foreign nations that lives amongst you, that lives near you, you are to buy your male and female slaves, and you are to own them as property for their life, and then you can pass them down as inheritances, as property, to your sons, not to your daughters, but to your sons. So when it speaks of the American slave trade, this was Pope Nicholas saying that the African is not of the same tribe as the European. They are of a different tribe. And matter of fact, they are a subhuman tribe. So therefore, you can make them slaves as property, chatteled, until they die, and pass them down as an inheritance if you die first. So the American slave trade was exactly how the Bible condones slavery. It also says, if you continue to read in Leviticus 25, that of those slaves, if you beat them, and they do not die within the first couple of days, then the slave master is to not be punished. But if they do die within the first couple of days, they can be punished. So beating the slave is also condoned in the Bible. Oftentimes, people try to say that the biblical slavery was different because of the treatment of the slavery that happened in America. Was it more harsh than what the Bible describes? Yes. Beating your slaves was okay in either format. pulling out teeth, uh, tortures, cutting off the nads, buck breaking. That's not in there. Except for if you visit somebody's town and you don't show proper respect, then they can buck break you. But all other accounts, the treatment of slavery was very different, but the treatment of slavery does not pull away from the condoning of the type of slavery that happened in America, which the primary emphasis here is the chattel slavery, is the ownership of a slave for their entire life without any opportunities to become free, that you didn't have to. Slave masters who did allow for their slaves to hire themselves out, to sell, grow and sell crops and things of that nature. And eventually the few that were able to buy their freedom, few who were able to buy their freedom, that just speaks of the treatment of slaves. The Bible most assuredly rather, condones the transatlantic slave trade, the purchasing, and then what became the kidnapping of slaves who are of a different tribe. And because race was created by Pope Nicholas V, that created, actually kind of Clement kind of first created it, but then it was like pushed more by Pope Nicholas V. So the Bible does indeed condone this chattel slavery of America. Does it condone all the treatment? No. But the fact that it condones slavery in itself, of any format, whether it's debt slavery or the chattel slavery that they are trying to get away from, they're trying to Bible wash, is bullshit, because they did condone it. It does condone it. Your God condones slavery. And for that reason alone, whether I was black or white, I could not worship this God, believe that this is the God. So in the comments, do you comment lying as liar, or do you not? Do you still have to emotionally contextualize this so that it can fit the narrative that you can still believe in this God, believe in this Bible, because you are afraid of hell, because you've been indoctrinated? That's the question you have to ask yourself, and only you can answer it. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.